I don't know if any of y'all noticed, but there's a new Scream in town. So that calls for a new ranking. Let's do this. What's up? Welcome to Destination Station. As always, I'm Destin. I'm here to do a ranking on all 5 Scream films. With the new film coming out, I said, what better yet? I should do a video on how I rank these. And if you've been a subscriber to Destination Station for a while, you know that I have always said that like I love the Scream films in exactly the order that they came out. But not now, not with this new film. So I took the opportunity the week of Scream 2022's release, I rewatched the entire franchise, which I've seen these films over and over and over, but I wanted to rewatch them all the way up till Scream 5 because I didn't know how that was going to, sometimes a later sequel can make you think twice about a previous installment. So I just wanted to go in with fresh eyes, new perspective, because I know a lot of people say that, Scream 4 is their favorite one since the original. And I know they hold it near and dear to their hearts. I've never been really that person, but I wanted to see if my perspective on the film has changed. Give it another go, see my pros and cons on it, and see where it lands on my actual ranking after I see the 5th film. So yeah, I'm not throwing any shade towards Scream 4 or anything like that, but even after rewatching all of these films, here recently up to the release of Scream 5, you can go back and watch all the live streams. I have live streams for every one of them, and I plan on doing initial reviews for them as well, but right now I want to do a ranking of them, and I still have to say right now Scream 4 is at my number 5 spot. Now, Scream 4 came out at a time that, even the slasher genre was kind of fading. We had The Conjuring on the rise and all these supernatural movies. So it was like Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven had this idea for a new trilogy that we never even got to see the conclusion of. Rest in peace, Wes Craven. No one can predict what's going to happen, and then with the Weinstein's scandal and all that kind of stuff, so I'm not going to get in all of that, but we never got to see the outcome of what they had planned, especially Kevin Williamson. And I still have to say that like Scream 4, let's talk about the pros right now, okay? Because it's not an awful film. Just because it's last on this list does not mean that I don't like this movie. I do like this movie. This movie has some really sharp writing in some areas, and it has some really cool and unique ideas that I want to see, messed with a little bit more. I just feel like the execution, a lot of the times I felt like, when you watch a movie and you feel like people are acting, I hate that, because if I can tell that you're acting, it's like it's taking me out of the experience. It's like I can tell that this is fake. And I know that movies are fake. All right, let's talk about the pros of this movie of Scream 4, okay? We got the OG 3 back. We got Nev, David, and Courtney back. We're back in Woodsboro also. That's another pro. We have not been back in Woodsboro since 1996, since the original, because we were at Windsor College in the second one. We were in Hollywood in the third one. So that had my interest intrigued as well. So and then they had this remakes motive, this remakes angle, as far as this meta, all these horror remakes that were being made at the time. Not just horror remakes, just remakes in general. And also another pro was Olivia's kill. This was the most vicious we've seen Ghostface in the entire franchise, pretty much. And it was kind of cool how it was executed, with the whole closet scene and Jill and Kirby being next door in the window and watching it happen. It was a pretty cool scene that really was probably one of the biggest highlights of that movie. But other than that, and also, let me say, and there's going to be plenty of spoilers in here, so if you haven't seen any of these films, don't watch this video. But I assume that if you're watching this ranking video, you've seen the entire franchise and you're a fan. So, yeah. So, anyways, let's continue. Also, another pro was the Jill reveal. Like, I enjoyed that. I thought that was really, really clever. Even though me going into the movie, I already had the movie spoiled for me. I already kind of had the killers. I already knew who the killers were. I was hoping that whoever told me online was wrong, but I had that in the back of my mind. So I think that kind of like took away from the movie a little bit. You know, you know, in the ending and knowing the killer's reveal, but it was still shocking. It was still good writing, and it was a very good climax scene with Jill being the reveal and Charlie. And but you know, if you really look at it, you know, Jill and Charlie, they were small. They were, and I'm not throwing shade at them at all because their performances were pretty good. Not really crazy about Charlie. I felt like, you know, I could always tell that he was acting, and I didn't buy most of his performance like throughout the entire movie. I was just kind of like who is this kid, you know? But Emma Roberts is a really good and talented actress, and she was good in this she played really good psychopath as to Sidney Prescott's cousin, and I enjoyed that angle. But if you look at Ghostface, and he's taking out cops and he's taking out all these other people, and he's doing like the most vicious kill of the entire franchise, and you're telling me that these two kids, little kids, high school kids, did this? You know, I mean, I'm not saying that it can't happen or anything like that, but also Ghostface is like 6'3", and then our killers are 5'2", and you know, that's another reveal. It kind of takes me out of it a little bit. And I know everybody's going to say in the comment section that, you know, you do know it's a stunt double underneath the Ghostface mask. Yes, I do know, okay? Because I wouldn't think that the actors would want to get their ass whooped by Sidney or run into fucking doors or trip over shit or get their ass whooped throughout the entire movie in the Ghostface costume. So yeah, I would hope that whoever that stunt double is, they're getting paid very well, because they go through some shit, some real shit. So yeah, so other than that, like, I do like that, you know, Gail and Dewey are living together. Dewey is now the sheriff of the town, and then he's got this deputy, Judy Hicks, and there's like this little love triangle. Not a love triangle, but it's like this little tension between Gail and Judy Hicks, because Judy Hicks has the hots for Dewey with her lemon squares and all that kind of stuff. That was all like, that was fine. That was decent writing, even though Judy Hicks kind of overdoes it in some scenes. But yeah, but she was still a good addition to this movie, because she was like the female version of Dewey, because Dewey was more serious in this one. So we had to have that. We had to find the yin for the yang. You know what I'm saying? Like, we had to find that balance of the force. So another pro for Scream 4 is Kirby. Okay. Most of us enjoyed Kirby's performance. Hayden Panettiere killed it in this movie. And you know, and the way that she was done by the end, you know, like, she's like laying there bleeding, but she's still moving. And if you listen to the commentary with Wes Craven, he even says, hey, she's still moving. So it's like he had ideas that she would be a survivor in this film. And I'll touch on her character when we get to Scream 5. But yeah, so yeah, she was a big standout in this, and I was hoping that she was our new final girl, but we all know with the Weinstein scandal and all that kind of stuff that didn't go as planned. And then with Wes Craven's passing, now let's talk about the cons of Scream 4, okay? And there are a lot, in my opinion. So yeah, first I want to talk about the cinematography, okay? The sparkling effect, that little twinkle, that little brightness, you know, everything's like glaring off of like the street and the signs, and it's just like that real, you know, like bright glare in the background around our characters and stuff like that. And also like the music choices, you know, like I felt like this whole look and vibe that they gave for Scream 4 it felt like it was a CW show. Like is this a made for TV movie here? Like what's going on here? This doesn't feel like something that Wes Craven would direct. And I understand that it was intentional. They said that they wanted this to be a new trilogy, so they kind of made the look of it a little bit better, a little bit different than the first three films. You don't have to do that. We can still, you know, Scream 5 was a perfect example. That felt like it fit right in with the other films. But this one just feels like it's like, to me, the black sheep of the franchise a little bit, just because like some of the acting as well, like some of the lines, and it could be script issues, you know, like Gail delivers some of the lines that like Adam Brody as the cop, and the way they act was kind of goofy. It just certain scenes that was directed, and by all, let's just talk about, you know, we are in Woodsboro, right? But in my opinion, it did not feel like Woodsboro. It didn't feel like Woodsboro at all. And then on top of it, the deleted scenes that was a part of the Blu-ray that came out, they should have kept in the movie. It would have made it so much better, along with the alternate opening. The alternate opening was amazing. And let's talk about the opening right now since we're on it, okay? That opening where they were trying to do, you know, stab 5, stab 6, you know, and then, you know, these fake openings and just have these, like, you know, glorious cameos of hot stars at that time. It was okay. It was funny at first, and then you do it again, and then when we're actually in the movie, I kept thinking the way that everything was still playing out, I was like, okay, this has got to be another stab movie, because it still feels goofy. It still feels, you know, just the way that, you know, I got a such and such GPA, you know, grade point average asshole, blah 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 blah. And they didn't even like Roger L. Jackson's voice, the delivery of some of these lines, and nothing against him because he's awesome, but there was something about his voice that just sounded off. It sounded like he was almost parodying himself a little bit, you know, like it was borderline Scary Movie almost, you know, like it wasn't that goofy, but you know what I'm saying? It didn't feel serious. It did not. I didn't get a serious vibe in this movie at all. And then once you do, you know, they had that homage to, you know, Tatum's death with the garage door at the beginning, and then the title card comes on, and then you got the mask and the Scream 4 title card, and then you hear that music just sets the tone for the forward movie. And it was just like, it felt just so teeny boppy CW. I don't know. Just from the beginning, I was just not feeling it, and I was like, all right, this movie's going to catch me any minute. This movie's going to switch gears, and it's going to get serious again and all that. But it was just trying to be too clever. It was trying to be too many things, and it just needed to be a simple slasher movie that was a little bit of meta. See, let's talk about the new cast. Like, I could not connect with any of the cast in this movie. Like, I know this was supposed to be the new cast that we were supposed to follow for a new trilogy, if that's what they were going to do. But, you know, like, all of them, like, any of them, I just did not care for, except for Kirby and Jill. And, you know, Kirby was awesome. We all know that. But everybody else, Trevor, Charlie, Olivia, which Olivia gets killed pretty early on. We don't even get to really know her. And then we got Robbie. You know, I just wasn't even feeling it at all. Like, I was just like, man, please, at the end of this movie, let's just hear the movie go, cut. And then we say, oh, this was just another stab sequel. I would have liked the movie so much more if they would have taken that angle. You know, kind of like Get Shorty or something like that. You know, a movie within a movie. You know, like I would have been like, man, that was pretty cool. And then you actually have like Neve Campbell and David Arquette on set, and they're all like being themselves, kind of like a New Nightmare type vibe or something. And then that would lead into a new movie. You know, like maybe there's a killing on set or something. Like, come on, like. Look, I just came up with that on the fly. That sounds like a better scenario already. And I know that David Arquette, you know, he is amazing. You know, he is like the heart and soul of this entire franchise, in my opinion. And I know this is Sydney's movie, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Not taking away from anything from Sydney and Gil, but Dewey has just got that lovable Barney Fife-ish. You know, he gets lucky, but he's got so much like he's brave, but he's just. You know, he just accidentally survives every movie. So like that's kind of the heart and soul. But like David Arquette's request was that his character was going to be taken a little bit more serious, since he's going to be the sheriff of the town, and that's what happens. I feel like that's missing from the movie as well, because David Arquette, like his best. He didn't feel like Dewey in this movie, you know, at all. Like, I just didn't feel it, except for that one moment at the ending where they're in the hospital and Jill beats his ass with a what do you call one of them pans? One of them bedpans. And just like, he's just like spinning around. He's just getting his ass whooped. I was like, all right, there's Doofy right there. Yeah, I thought that was great. So yeah, I liked certain aspects of this movie. It had some great ideas. You know, the killer is filming his kills. This is all about remakes, but they didn't take enough bold choices. They didn't have the balls to kill off one of the main cast, which I think they should have done. And they kind of just they kind of played it safe a little bit, and they also went too comedic. For everybody that complains about Scream 3 being so comedy compared to the first two films, but then they give praise for Scream 4, I'll never understand that. Maybe the ones that are given praise like were at that certain age, and Scream 4 was like their introduction to the Scream franchise. But if you're OG like myself, I saw the original Scream film in cinemas. Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4, Scream 5, all of them in cinemas. Like, no, it's just there is a disconnect with Scream 4, and I know that we were supposed to get a new trilogy, and I would have liked to see how that would have played out, but I'm kind of glad we did not, because we would have never gotten the Scream 5 that we have today. So in conclusion, for Scream 4, it is at my number 5 spot. Moving on to my number 4 spot, and you know, I have really juggled along with like, where do I land this one, because I really, every time I watch this movie, I have something else to admire about it. Like I find some more enjoyment about it, and I think maybe it was ahead of its time as well, even though that a lot of people call it the black sheep of the franchise, which I really think 4 is that. But a lot of people say this one is, and I just, you know, even though that it is landing at number 4, I thoroughly enjoy this movie for what it is, and that is going to be Scream 3 is at my number 4 spot. Scream 3 takes place in Hollywood on the setting of Stab 3. Was it Stab 3? Yeah, it was Stab 3. I had to think about that for a second. And every time I watch this movie, I find some other type of enjoyment about it. I feel like that if this movie would have came out today on Netflix or you know, any kind of streaming service, or even the cinemas, you know, I feel like it would have been a lot more better received. I felt like the Scream franchise was always ahead of its time from the beginning. Wes Craven's always been ahead of his time. So is Kevin Williamson's writing. Like, come on, man, he's one of the best in the biz. And with Scream 3, this one was not written by Kevin Williamson, so I went in with like a little bit of low expectations. I knew that this was going to be the ending of a trilogy, and it was supposed to pay off. And I just did not know where they were going to go with this angle. But when I was watching it, I loved everything that I was seeing. But then we started getting into the comedy and that meta on meta stuff, where we got 2 Deweys and we got 2 Gales, we got 2 Sydneys, and all this kind of stuff. And then we got Jenna McCarthy in the movie that just was there for marketing, pretty much just to get killed off. She wasn't anyone important. So yeah, I even though that this movie has so many flaws, I still enjoy this one. Let's talk about the opening of Scream 3 real quick with Cotton Weary, okay? We just grew to accept Cotton as a hero. We started liking him by the end of Scream 2. Like, we didn't know if we liked him at all throughout Scream 2 because he was like a red herring, but then when he became like pretty much the hero of Scream 2, and it seemed like, oh man, like he's going to be part of the OG cast, and then they kill him off right there at the beginning. I felt like, dang, man, like I don't even know if I want to watch the rest of this movie. Like that should have been later on. Let's save that punch to the gut like later on in the film, but you do it right up front. And it was kind of a simple, you know, opening, but it was fine. You know, we get the what if, you know, like I always like scenes where like somebody's in a house and somebody's turned on a record and we hear like some cool song, you know, like in this one it's Creed, What If. And I know a lot of people hate on Creed and this song because of this movie, but I still enjoy it. It kind of like set a vibe at the beginning of the movie, and it was kind of cool. And if you really think about it, the beginning of this movie with Cotton Weary and Christine, this opening kill was probably the most serious part of this movie, unless you say the climax with Sydney and Roman. So yeah. So And then we move on into Hollywood. You know, Sydney's living off on her own. She's got a dog. No, it's not Scooby, even though this has like a Scooby-esque move, you know, feel to it. I was watching the movies and I was like, hey, what if she did come back to Hollywood and help out with these murders, and she brought her dog along, man? I was like, man, this really would have felt like a Scooby-Doo movie. Yeah, so since that movie, that there was a killing about, you know, one of the OG cast from the real life Woodsboro murders getting killed, they end up shutting down this whole production of Stab 3, and I kind of like that aspect, you know, like let's change it up, you know, and then they have like the house of Sydney and Stu's house, which has a really cool scene later on in the movie whenever Sydney gets to Hollywood. And this one is, yes, it does have its flaws, and where the movie really just kind of like takes me out of the movie is whenever the house blows up. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But how was that fax machine working if the electricity's out, and how did that, were they not able to smell that gas or anything like that, especially that much for it to blow up like that? I know it's a movie, I know it's Hollywood, all that kind of stuff, that's fine. Initially, when I first watched this movie, I was pretty let down by the time I left the movies. Even though I did enjoy it, I enjoy all of them, but I was disappointed in the ending. And let's talk about the ending real quick, because that's one of my cons of this, is the reveal of Roman being Sydney's long lost brother, and he was left out, and you know, he's leaving notes of Maureen, that Maureen had this second life in Hollywood, and her innocence was taken, and he tracked her down as Maureen later on, and she shut the door in the face, and that's why his vengeance towards Sydney, he's kind of like just a crying little bitch and all that kind of stuff, because she had the life that he wished he had, all that kind of stuff. I can see that kind of working a little bit. It's a little bit of a stretch, but what really didn't work for this ending was the reveal of Roman. We did not get enough screen time for Roman. At times, I forgot Roman was even in the movie. Like, and then at other times, you know, he's wearing his glasses throughout the entire movie, and then when he's revealed, his glasses are off. So I had to like take a second take. I was like, who is that? Oh, is that guy? Oh, okay. That's Scott Foley. Oh, okay. But there were several. How are we supposed to guess that? How is this supposed to be that much impact if the killer was from Woodsboro? You know, we in my mind, that makes me think, who was in the first film that could possibly be the killer? So I'm racking my brain like that, and then later on in the movie, whenever they're all around the mansion, you know, looking for that secret screening room and all that kind of stuff, like Roman pretty much fakes his death, so that's like options him out too. So we're not thinking about him at all. So I mean, so it was kind of a it was a trick. It was a trick on the audience. Like I didn't like that. I wanted it to just hit. They just did not mark the landing with Scream 3. Now there are aspects that I do like. I think Dewey and Gail are great in this movie. I think that they have some really good chemistry and lines together. And then we got Parker Posey as well. I think she was great. I kind of wish she didn't get killed off. Like, she could still, you know, be a part of it, because she had really good chemistry with Gail and Dewey. I thought Stone was good, even though, you know he was pretty cool, but you know he gave Dewey that infamous name Dewdrop. You know, I kind of thought that was kind of cool. But the rest of the cast, I could just really care less, except for Mark Kincaid. Mark Kincaid was really good. Patrick Dempsey, and you know, we later on figure out that, you know, Sydney and Mark Kincaid are married with kids and all that kind of stuff from Scream 5. He's not in it, but he is mentioned, and I've made other videos about that on my channel too. But I really like the cops in this movie. The detectives are really good. The aspect of like, you know, Dewey and the detective, you know, kind of like testing each other a little bit, you know, like, you know, was that a threat? You know, all that kind of stuff. That was great stuff. Really great writing. So Aaron Kruger, that wrote this movie, that's done some Transformers movies and some more lighthearted action and comedy stuff. Like, I just wasn't expecting much, but he did better than I thought. Still missed that Kevin Williamson little sharp writing and all that. I think the original idea for Scream 3 was actually Stu Marker to come back, and he had like this cult following and all that. And I know people are still hoping that he comes back in some future installment, and he could. We don't know. He's never been determined actually dead. So yeah, you know, here's the hope, right? Scream 3 was filmed to have like 2 killers in it, and the studio did not want that, but you could very much tell that, like, hey, we're all thinking there's going to be 2 killers except for one. I think that also, you know, takes away from that punch at the end, like that climax just not landing, is because we only get one reveal, and that one reveal should have been a major reveal, not some just mediocre reveal. But with 2 killers, it was supposed to be like Angelina and Roman, and the way that Angelina's death is in this too, you know, like it was kind of like sus as hell. But I always thought that Angelina was a little too obvious, so I thought she was a major red herring. But they do, like in the Scream movies, that's for sure, they do make the red herrings the killers in this one, in these films. Like Billy, like the whole movie, everyone's pointing their finger at Billy, and you're kind of second guess yourself. Not as sharp writing with Angelina by no means, but same thing with Angelina, same thing in Scream 5 with Amber and Richie and stuff like that. So you know, they do that is, you never know who it's going to be. So anyways, so yeah, Scream 3, it has some really great moments. It did not hit the landing by the climax. Still enjoy it nonetheless. Really enjoyed it this past week that I watched it. I was like, wow, this was really good. If you would have made this into a movie and called it some other slasher, some other movie, and put a different costume on, or have some different different idea for a slasher, and people would love this movie. People will love this movie so much more. But still, after watching it, this movie still lands number 4 on my ranking list. Now we're into the top 3, and this is where I really struggled. I really struggled with my top 3. I really struggled with my top 4 because, like, after watching part 2, I noticed a lot of pacing issues and a lot of stuff that, like, kind of bothered me this time around. But I do overall still enjoy part 2. It has some really great moments, great chemistry, and we still got Randy in the franchise. But I have to say, at this moment, after really thinking about it, and I went back and forth in my head with where do I put this film, and I have to say that Scream 2 is at my number 3 spot. Now, Scream 2 takes place in Windsor College a year or two after, you know, what happened in Scream 1996, and we got Sydney, we got Randy at the college together. The film opens up with Jada Pinkett Smith and her boyfriend going to see a stab movie. So it's based off the Gale Weathers book. So we see that this has become like some big film. You know, everybody's dressed in like Ghostface costumes, and it's like this big party. I've never seen a theater like that. I almost had that experience with Scream 2 whenever I first saw it. Like, there was a couple people that ran up and down the aisles in Scream costumes, like in the middle of the movie, and everybody was having a really good time in the theater. But it was never to that effect right there. I think I would want my money back, because that's too much chaos for a theater for me. And I think, like, you know, where the hell was the manager? The manager should have, you know, someone should have made a shot where the manager comes in and said, "This is bullshit," you know, and everybody's saying, "Hey, it's too much chaos. I want my money back." But anyways, so yeah, the opening was pretty cool. You know, I kind of liked the opening. It was like this meta take on, you know, everybody's like, you know, glorifying like these Woodsboro murders and killing in cinema and stuff like that. And then everyone thought that the whole Maureen, which is Jada Pinkett Smith, Maureen Evans, is getting butchered right there in the theater, but everyone thinks it's like some type of show. But then they start to realize that, hey, no, it wasn't. So everyone automatically assumes that someone is targeting Sydney because this is in her town. And So yeah, so this movie had like a lot of cool stuff. You know, Randy is probably at his best in this one, even though I feel like he got killed off way too soon. Because like, you know, he was always like, he wants the geek to get the girl. We kind of was rooting for Randy a little bit. A lot of us horror movie nerds saw ourselves in Randy, and we kind of wanted him to win in some way, shape, or form. And also the chemistry between Jamie Kennedy and David Arquette, like when they're in the ice cream store and stuff, and they're trying to, like, you know, if I'm a suspect, you're a suspect, and you know, and he's breaking it all down. Randy was always one step ahead of the curve. You know, he was always, you know, in Scream 1, he always knew who at least one of the killers were. You know, he pointed the finger and said, Billy, you know, there's always some stupid bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend. And he had his fingers on him. He's like, you're telling me that that's not a killer. Scream 2, he even mentions Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student. Okay, so like but he's like, if he's a suspect, so am I. So let's move on. So that was great. I wanted to see more of Dewey and Randy, this buddy cop, you know, investigating type, you know, scenes. Like, that would have been great to carry on into the movies. You know, I just feel like that was a missed opportunity. And I know Wes Craven has went on record and says he wished he did not kill Randy in the film, but you know, this is kill your darlings. You know, like, that's what's the gut punch. Like, it's like, ooh, that hurts so damn bad. Kind of like The Walking Dead. You know, they kill off your favorite characters, and you're just like, fuck. You better write a good character for me to attach to, because you just lost me. Some people will just hang up a franchise or a TV show after their favorite character's killed. So that's honestly, I feel like that's when the franchise started going downhill, is once they killed Randy. All in college, and Sydney and has a best friend named Haley. He's got a boyfriend named Derek. I thought Jerry O'Connell was great in this movie. You didn't know if you could trust him or if he was being genuine. And, you know, it's pretty tragic to what happens to him at the end. A lot of people don't talk about Derek as much, but he gave a lot to this movie. He really played on that boyfriend, like, can you trust him or not? And then what happens is just kind of tragic. But I feel like one of the killers was pretty predictable in this, and Mickey, you know, Timothy Olyphant, fantastic actor. But from the get-go, I was like, man, where's Mickey been all this time? It's got to be Mickey. I mean, where the hell's he been? You know, we ain't seen him in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And then he was always trying to direct things, like, you know, to Sydney, like, you know, you were not alone in this, Sydney. Why would he even go back into that house, you know? And then she gets to thinking, like, I was like, from that moment, I was like, Mickey's probably the killer. So yeah, and they didn't really like make you believe him later on. If they would have made a scene to where, like, you didn't suspect Mickey anymore, but they didn't do that. They just kind of left it like that. But the big reveal is really Mrs. Loomis, Debbie Salt. Well, she's not Debbie Salt. She doesn't exist. But, you know, with Billy Loomis's mom, that that was a really good reveal. I was not expecting that at all. A lot of people were suspecting Cotton. Liv Schreiber, playing Cotton Weary, is back in this movie, and he wants his 15 minutes of fame. He wants to be cleared, because even though that he's released, people were still, like, you know, acting funny around him, and they still think that he's a killer somehow. And so he just really wants that interview that's really going to, you know, relieve a lot of this pressure that he has from society on him. And so this whole dynamic between Sydney and Cotton Weary was really cool. I thought that was really cool. Then we have a really cool scene later on with Gale Weathers and Dewey in the sound studio. And there's a really good chase scene, and then, you know, is soundproof glass, and then, you know, you think Dewey gets killed. You know, he gets stabbed. I mean, if you listen to those sound effects, you don't see it, but you hear like 4, 5, 6 stabs, and then he's thrown up against the glass, all dramatic, and that music is playing, and then you're like, oh damn, they really did kill Dewey this time. But nope, at the end, here he is with the thumbs up, you know, and he survived again. So yeah, even though that there was a lot of things that I loved about this movie, but like it's like a 50-50, you know, like, oh, I love this movie, but I hate it at the same time, you know. Also, I felt like Roger L. Jackson's voice and a lot of the dialogue on the phone and stuff like that did not hit as well as the first film. It felt like it was just kind of like, do you want to die tonight, CC? And it just got straight to the point. He didn't play really many games or anything like that. It was just kind of like, almost like that Scream 4 level when it comes to dialogue. At least in Scream 3, he played with his victims a little bit. But yeah, in this one, had some cool death scenes. Ghostface was still a little bit clumsy. They should have never killed off Randy. That was a big mistake. I hate that. Even the way that was directed with like those guys come about with the boombox and listen to music and Randy's kind of killed off screen. I didn't like that really too much. Joel, the cameraman, like I thought that was really cool. I'm hoping to see him back in a future installment. I thought he was going to be in Scream 5 because he put something out on his social media that he did survive. He could be coming back to Woodsboro. So maybe they have some type of idea for him to come back, or maybe he's in a deleted scene. Who knows? He could be working with Gail Weathers in New York on that show, that morning show that she's on in Scream 5. So yeah. So all that said, Scream 2 is at my number 3 spot. Now, I know it's cliche to say that this is the best one since the original, because we hear that all the time. We heard that when Scream 4 came out. We heard that with a lot of new reboots or requels or anything like that. Oh, it's the best one since the original. But honestly, like, after watching this movie for a second time, I have to say, yes, it is. It, for a number of different reasons, it is the best one since the original. It doesn't mean it's a perfect movie. Doesn't mean I don't have issues with the film. But Scream 2022 is at my number 2 spot. And there's a lot of reasons why this is at my number 2 spot, because on my second viewing, there's so many different Easter eggs that you can pick up on that you didn't see on the first viewing or the second viewing, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again. It has that rewatchability factor that the first film had, and that's what makes this one at its number 2 spot, because I don't feel like Scream 2 or Scream 3 or 4 has that. I felt like there were some pacing issues in all 3 of those movies, but this one, the pacing is very well done. And then the new cast that we get, I attached onto them. They had better personalities and better line deliveries and better chemistry amongst each other than Scream 4's cast did, besides Kirby. But this film also has some of the most awesome deaths in this movie. Like, it has some moments where it's like cringing. It's like, ooh, I'm not saying it's like the most goriest kills you've ever seen in a slasher movie. No, not by any means. But in a Scream movie, yeah, there were some moments you're just kind of like, ooh, that I felt that a little bit. That was a little much. And they were kind of unique in some ways. But also with this movie, like the opening with Tara Carpenter and Ghostface calling her, Roger L. Jackson's performance in this movie was dead on. I was like, wow, yeah, he's back. He's actually giving it his all, because the way he's toying with Tara, and he's just, gaining her trust by talking to her about, bullshit about her mom and movies and stuff like that, and then just turns vicious on a cycle. I was like, boom, Scream 1. Like, there it is right there. That's the best I've seen Ghostface in a long time. So yeah. Kudos to Radio Silence, man. Like they did a terrific job. Like, honestly, doesn't mean the movie's perfect. He's pretty vicious. Ghostface. He's out for blood in this one. He does some pretty unique ways of taking people out. Also, I want to talk about, let's talk about the pros real quick, okay? We got the OG3 back, and the one that stands out the most is obviously David Arquette, okay? He gets the most screen time in this one, and I think that his performance is probably the best I've ever seen in any movie of David Arquette. I mean, I know that's going for a long shot there, but like you could feel David Arquette's pain. You even though he still had that like little bit of Dewey in the back too, because like there was like that scene, like a little bit of goofiness. Even though how serious he was, he still had that little bit dewdrop humor. You know what I'm saying? Like even when he was with the kids and they were like, you know, pointing at each other and saying, oh, well, maybe you're the killer. Well, it would make sense if you're the killer. And then they pointed at Dewey and said, you know, well, maybe you're the killer. You know, and he's like, well, maybe you're the killer because that cut deep. That's just like, that made me giggle. Yeah, that tickled the fuck out of me. David Arquette was great in this movie. Like everything about it, I wanted to see more of him. I wish, you know, he was in it more. You know, it felt like, you know, he doesn't come into play until like 30 minutes into the movie, and then, you know, he's not in the climax of the movie either. You know, spoiler alert: Dewey gets killed in the hospital scene, and but the way this whole movie plays out, like with Sam Carpenter and Tara Carpenter and their chemistry, and it felt like they were really sisters. And you know, Sam's been gone for 5 years and Tara's been attacked, so Sam and Richie her boyfriend Richie come back to Woodsboro to, you know, help out. And then they seek Dewey's for his assistance on, you know, how do we track this killer, what do we do, what's the rules. And Dewey's trying to guide them a little bit. Jenna Ortega, let's talk about her for a second, because she gives some really great performances. She has some great emotion on her face in these scenes. She sometimes, like, I do feel like they should have cut a little bit out, because I feel like she overdoes it in some spots. Nothing to take away from her, because she was giving it her all. I just feel like sometimes I'm just like, wow, she is like throwing all her emotions out there. It felt like something that Leonardo DiCaprio would do, you know, like getting real extreme and just real emotional and stuff like that. Jenna Ortega is going to be a huge star, a lot more than what she is now. So be on the lookout for her. And a lot of people think, including myself, that she could be our new final girl. And I would be okay with that, because when you're watching this movie, one of the twists of this film is that Sam Carpenter has visions, and she is actually Billy Loomis's daughter, and she's having visions of Billy Loomis, her dad, and he's kind of like, when are you going to tell him about your secret, blah 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 blah. And you know, like why introduce this if they're not going to do more with it in the future? Because it almost made it seem like once the climax of the movie got there, Billy Loomis was almost like helping his daughter, you know, and like nudging her, like where the knife is, and so she got that. And you know, spoiler alert, Richie and Amber are the killers. That's one of the cons in the movies, even though that I do like Richie being the killer, even though it was obvious. I felt like there just needed to be an extra reveal or something there. But you know, with Sam Carpenter, you know, seeing her dead dad's vision, him helping her find that knife, and then he's like, she says something like, you don't fuck with the daughter of a serial killer, and she just like stabs the shit out of Richie, and he's just getting fucked up, you know. And then she wipes the blade off just like Ghostface. I was like, okay, any minute now we're about to see that Sam Carpenter is actually a third killer too, and that would have taken it to the next level. I think that, like, if they would have done something psychological, like even before she even like kills Richie, or maybe she's in the process of killing Richie, and Richie knows that Sam's having visions of her dead dad, and he's been kind of like coaching her through this, but Sam doesn't know that she's one of the killers. I think that would have been a really cool angle. That would have taken it to the next level. I really do. Like, I just feel like this film almost has that same thing with Scream 3. It almost just doesn't hit that landing a little bit. Everything's great about the movie, but then that reveal just too obvious, and the motive just ain't there, and we just need that extra little umph. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, what if, like, this is how I feel like it should have ended, and I made a video about this before, is like, what if like Sam's getting ready to kill Richie, and Richie has like a trigger word or something like that, and says something like, you know, Loomis or Billy Loomis or your dad, something, and she kind of turns, and she has like this split personality that just makes her snap, right? And she kind of like just turns on her sister and Sydney and Gail, and she's trying to kill them, and they have no other choice but to kill her as well. Richie still gets killed. He's sitting there bleeding out on the floor, but maybe he's like laughing and bleeding out his mouth and just being like, you know, and Tara became the new final girl. Or maybe not. Maybe she would snap out of it. Maybe they're trying to get her to snap out of it, and and in a later sequel, you know, maybe the Scream 6 or whatever they're going to call it, you know, Sam is sitting there, you know, not realizing that she's a killer, but maybe like somebody ends up dead, and then she's like, and then when she comes back to Sam's personality, she's like, oh, I can't believe I just did that. And she looks at Tara, and there's like this moment where she tells her sister, you got to kill me. You can't trust me. I can't trust myself. I can't be trusted. You have to kill me. And Tara's like, no, 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 no. Can't do it. And then like somewhere at the climax of the movie, she twists and she's the killer. And she's coming after Tara, and Tara can't kill her. And then maybe Sydney or Gail or both of them, or even maybe Tara kills Sam. And then Tara's really our final girl. I would be okay with that. Do something different. Kind of like that movie Identity or Split from M. Night Shyamalan. Something of that, you know, like let's go, if they're going to implement this plot of Sam Carpenter having visions of her dead dad, then let's do something with it. Let's don't just like, oh, well, he's just an anti-hero now, or anti-villain now, you know, like he's gonna help her get through this, like to make her a fighter. Like, I don't know. I felt like that's another con of the movie, is that we saw Billy Loomis too much. Skeet Ulrich, great. You know, some of the de-aging effect was kind of questionable, but I felt like we saw him too much. Maybe once, maybe twice, maybe at the beginning and then maybe at that ending. But that, like that car scene, you know, like I didn't like it. I didn't like that whole car scene where he's in the rearview mirror. I felt like we just saw way too much of him. I'm still banking on Stu Macher being in it. Also, if you didn't see that Easter egg of whenever Richie is watching the Stab movies on his laptop, and you see over on the side, it looks like a YouTube video. It says Woodsboro survivor Kirby Reed, and it shows Hayden Panettiere, Kirby from the 4th film. So Kirby is alive. That they put that in there for a reason. And then there's other Easter eggs, like Stu Macher also being the voice for the flamethrower, you know, for Stab 8. You know, like I don't know if he actually was wielding the flamethrower, but it is confirmed by radio silence that he did voice the flamethrower guy. So it doesn't mean that was Stu Macher in that. They're just throwing little Easter eggs in there. And also Stu Macher's voice can be heard at the Stu Macher house whenever the party's going on at the climax of the movie, where, you know, Stu Macher says, nice house, Freeman, you know, or something like that. So yeah, I need to see the movie one more time to catch that, but I am looking forward to hearing that. But I heard that they use his voice there as well. So yeah, like Radio Silence did a great job with all these Easter eggs and you know, giving an homage to the original and their love for Wes Craven. And a lot of these kills, it felt like it fit into like the original trilogy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it felt like a Scream movie with just a little bit more spice to it. And you know, we had Red Right Hand in there that kind of set the mood. But then we have that bittersweet moment where Dewey's death in the hospital, which is like a really empty floor, by the way. But like, if no one noticed, okay, I'm not gonna go too much into this, but has anyone noticed that Dewey's death with you know, his phone ringing, he's like, oh, I gotta shoot him in the head, and they're like, no, and then he goes back, he's emptying all his casings, and he's putting his bullets back in, and he's getting ready to shoot. Phone goes off, Ghostface jumps up, which is Amber. I don't like that. Okay, I hope they retcon that and they make it Stu Macher or somebody else, you know, the mastermind of some sort that actually took out Dewey. But ends up stabbing him in the gut, stabbing him in the back, pulling up, and then Dewey hits the ground, and you hear Ghostface say, "It's an honor," and then kicks him to the ground, and Dewey is dead. Dewdrop just got dropped. Okay, but if anybody else did, has anyone seen this Easter egg? If you are a Call of Duty fan, you will know this. Call of Duty Warzone, or back around Halloween, they came out with a Halloween event where Ghostface was one of the skins, and every operator, the Ghostface operator, gets a finishing move. Okay, and Ghostface's finishing move was exactly Dewey's death. It was this entire time we have seen Dewey's death. If you've been a gamer, if you've been on Call of Duty Warzone, if you go back and you show it Ghostface is stabbing in the stomach, in the back, pulling up, and then kicking him to the ground. And so yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. I don't see anybody touching on that, but I caught on to that. I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, moving on. So yeah, I liked Richie. I know the movie's talked on, toxic fandom, which wasn't the best motive. It'll work. I was just still waiting for that third reveal or that third twist. I wanted a little bit more of a motive with bringing this one back. I know everybody's hoping for Stu Macher to come back, and they were hoping it was going to be in this one. But don't blow your load too early. We're not counting him out. Doesn't mean he's not going to be in the next film, or he's going to be the mastermind in Scream 7, like Roman was in Scream 3. Just this one will be a lot better landing of the reveal for the mastermind. And so yeah, there's still hope for that. So yeah, Sydney didn't get enough. Neve Campbell didn't get enough screen time. Courtney Cox didn't get enough screen time. But this is our new cast. This right here. And also, let's talk about how Ghostface kills people. There's a scene where Ghostface stabs, Wes through the neck, and I was just like, ooh, that looked really practical. And I was like, ooh, I was not expecting him to die right there. Judy gets killed, and then her son Wes Hicks gets killed real quick. And I honestly think that they should have done more with Wes. They should have kept Wes alive, honestly, in my opinion, because I know they wanted to do this whole scene for Wes. That's why they're throwing the party at Amber's house, and toasting to Wes, as an homage and appreciation to Wes Craven. But what much more would have been better of showing their appreciation to Wes Craven is they named this character Wes after him. Why not let him survive the attack and he move on with the franchise? He lives within the franchise. Hey everybody, my son came and wanted to say hey to everybody. Say hey.
I don't want to say hi.
You don't want to say hi? All right, well go watch your Sonic. All right, so yeah, where was I? I'm just realizing this video is going to be long as fuck. Long as fuck. If you're still with me, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good jazz. I appreciate it for all Scream content, all horror movie content. That's what my channel's mainly about. Right now, I'm doing a lot of Scream content. So yeah, I appreciate everybody that comes by and checks out my video. So yeah, with all that being said about Scream 2022, let's call it what it is, Scream 5. It lands at my number 2 spot. Now, if you didn't already know that what was going to be my number 1 spot, which you should have if you're a horror fan or if you're a Scream fan at all, it should be everybody's number 1 spot. You can't fuck with the original, okay? So yeah, Scream 1996 is at my number 1 spot. For many different reasons. This movie hit me at an age that just spoke to me. This was a horror movie for horror fans. This was a love letter to horror fans. And I was already a big fan of A Nightmare on Elm Street and Wes Craven. I already knew all that kind of stuff. Like, I was the kid at 11, 12 years old. So my parents would go to one movie, and I would go see the whatever movie that was out at that time, some kiddie movie, like Jumanji or whatever that was out at that time. And I would sneak into the horror movie, sneak into the new horror movie of that time. And I remember sneaking into like Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I remember just being like blown away and kind of frightened at the same time. And it just, like, I don't know what it was, like Freddy was like my Batman growing up. Which I am going to be meeting Robert Englund and the Screamcast along with Heather Langenkamp at Texas Frightmare this April. So yeah, I'll be doing a video on that too. On my, hopefully I get to, meet the whole entire crew. Like my life's over. I can die now. So yeah, so like these horror movies just spoke to me at a very early age. Like, I remember being. And I know I'm talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, but how can you talk about a Wes Craven movie and not mention, his previous work? But I remember being 5 years old and sitting on the couch, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4, when Kincaid pushes that car on top of Freddy Krueger and says, "Take that, motherfucker." And I repeated that when I was 5 years old, and I got in so much trouble, and I wasn't allowed to watch them, which made me want to watch them even more. And that's why I snuck into, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and ever since then I was just infatuated with Freddy. Even though that Nightmare 4 is not the best Nightmare on Elm Street film, that's a whole nother video. But yeah, so knowing that they had like little Easter eggs of Freddy Krueger, with Wes Craven being the janitor and being dressed like Freddy, and even like Principal Hembry, which is the Fonz, going, not you, Fred, just little stuff like that was so awesome in this movie. And then they talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, like all that stuff like that I was already a fan of. And I'm watching this movie that they're like playing this game, and then you got Drew Barrymore that was like marketed for this movie, and she's like Hollywood's sweetheart at the time, and then they kill her off the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then it transitions into our actual final girl, which is Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott. And just like the whole entire movie just like really like just spoke to me at a very young age. And it was one of those movies that was so rewatchable. I watched this movie so many times, and I remember it leaving theaters and then coming back before it would come out on VHS, because back then the movie, it took so long before they would actually hit video cassette. It's not like today, like 45 days after or 3 months after or something like that. It was like 6 months. It felt like, maybe I could be wrong about that, but it felt like it was a long time before that movie actually got released on VHS. So I just remember that movie leaving the theater and then coming back, and I watched it again. It was one of those movies I would just want to watch like every single weekend. I was getting people to watch it. And that's really what happened with Society as well, because this movie was not a hit on the actual release date or the weekend. It grew word of mouth. It created a cult following, and the movie just like grew this momentum, and it just like became this big superstar, and for good reason. It was so well written. It was originally, the original title was Scary Movie, which is later used as a parody of Scream for the Marlon Wayans film, or for the Wayans Brothers movie, Scary Movie. And a lot of that movie gets twisted with this movie because a lot of people remember those scenes more. So yes, Scream also had its like little undertones of comedy and stuff like that, but Scary Movie took it to a whole another level. So a lot of people like relate that so much to this, and they kind of get the two mixed up. So they really think Scream's a lot more comedy than it was supposed to. And then the sequels came out and they were a lot more comedy, and it was just kind of like, come on, like it blended that seriousness and that comedy so well. It was like the horror was first, and then the comedy came second. Later on in the sequels, it was like the comedy was first, and then the horror came second. So yeah, and I really think that really vibed this movie very well. This movie doesn't really have like three. It doesn't do that three a beginning, middle, and end structure. It really has two. It has like the first half and the second half. The entire climax of the second half of the movie is at the Stu Macher house. Like, we're 45 minutes in and we're already at the Stu Macher house. So from that point on, we're in the climax, baby. So that's what made this movie so well. It didn't waste any time. It didn't have any of those peaks and lows and peaks and lows. I mean, it was just a steady ride all the way to the climax. And then that reveal with having two killers was something that wasn't done before, which just turned horror and whodunits on its head, and the way it was orchestrated, because really I feel like these sequels kind of didn't get this right. I feel like Scream 5, Scream 2022 could have benefited if, with Amber and Richie being the killers there, if one was kind of silly and the other one was really serious. But once they were revealed, Richie was kind of a bitch. He was kind of a, he wasn't very intimidating. But in Scream 1, whenever you think, is Billy the killer? No, he's not. No, he's cleared. We never really suspected Matthew Lillard, Stu's character. But whenever they both were revealed, they played off each other so well, because Stu was so much energy and so goofy and lovable on the same time of being a psychopath. But then you got Billy over here being serious and bringing it back to a serious tone. That's what makes that climax work so well, is because Billy's motive and his seriousness, and you can see it in his eyes, like he's not fucking around. But in the later sequels, they just can't get there. I don't know what it is about, you know, Skeet Ulrich's, you know, performance that just like was so captivating about that ending. Same thing with Matthew Lillard. They were both great. And if they could do the killers like that in the future installments, like one be silly and another one being, you know, we don't want to copy Billy and Stu, but they need to have that balance. There has to be a balance of comedy and seriousness. And that's what made Scream so iconic, was all these different little Easter eggs of other horror movies and all this sharp writing and the characters. It really felt like your friends, you know, that you'd hang out with every single day. Their chemistry, you know, like you got Jamie Kennedy, you got Matthew Lillard, you got Skeet Ulrich. All of them had great chemistry. You had, you know, Rose McGowan, Nev Campbell. Like, they were all great. They felt like real friends, like people that you were friends with in real life. And so yeah, it was kind of like a home invasion type of movie before like The Strangers came along. I know that was based off a true story, but like there's just something about Scream that just, should I say screamed to me, but spoke to me. So yeah, not to be too cheesy, but yeah, I could just go on, and I will do a later review on Scream, but I have to say that like Scream takes the #1 spot here, and it's not just the #1 spot in this ranking. It is my #1 horror movie of all time. So kudos to Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson for making my favorite movie of all time, Scream. Thank y'all for watching my ranking video. I know this has been very lengthy. I've been wanting to make this for a minute. Just didn't have the time. If you stuck around, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. It helps this video get out there, the more likes it gets. So yeah, thank y'all. I hope y'all like this video. I'll do more rankings in the future, and I'm going to do reviews for every single one of these films and get more in depth than I already have. So this was kind of like a review and ranking at the same time. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. So yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. This is Destination Station. As always, I'm Destin. I'll see you guys tomorrow. So yeah, thanks for clicking on this video. This is Destination Station. As always, I'm Destin. I'm out. Peace. It's a Scream, baby.
Hello, sinners. It is I, Father Evil, and I invite you to Destination Station on YouTube.